Hello, everyone. Welcome. And remember that you are listening to Media Lex Radio, WLXU 93.9 LPFM in Lexington, Kentucky. I am here once more with Council Member Jennifer Reynolds, who is a Council Member of District 11th here in Lexington. Thank you for being with us once again.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be back.
Yes, I'm always delighted to see you here and even more eager to learn about what's going on at the Council. So, what can you tell us?
Well, I would say the spring is one of the busiest seasons on City Council. On City Council, we actually are in session a lot of the year, whereas in Frankfort, they're just in session a few months out of the year. So we have a few breaks of session in the summer, spring, fall, and over the holidays, but for the most part, we are meeting. So things tend to ramp up in the spring due to budget season. So we're still in the budget process. The links of the council members are still meeting. I had 2 meetings, and now we are wrapping up our reports. And those reports are going to be reported out to all of council in a committee of the whole. And during those meetings, council will hear the recommendations from all the different links, which divides the city's budget up into different sections. And then in those sections, we might make recommendations. So, for instance, in the meeting, the chair will read the report out. Sometimes the report out says the recommendation is to accept the mayor's proposed budget in full, and then it moves forward with that recommendation. Sometimes there's a recommendation to add something or move something around, and occasionally somebody who did not serve on a link will make a recommendation for another link. And we talk through all the report outs, all the recommendations, and then at the end, we decide what we vote on, what will move forward. And whatever we decide moves forward is what ends up becoming the city's budget. Then that goes to council meeting, and then it's read 2 times before it's passed as the city's budget.
That's right. It's a very meticulous process.
Yes, it is. And we try to take it very seriously. The mayor starts early in the year interviewing her divisions, going over revenue projections, and then asking the divisions to present to her in her hearings. And then she gives her address with her proposed budget. And then after that, it goes to us in the small groups and then to the full council.
Yes, and it must be a very demanding, time-consuming process because in addition to all the other meetings that you have and to deal with all the other things that the city has to discuss.
Correct. Yes. It's a lot to learn. I remember my first year on council, it seemed a little bit overwhelming. You're learning, I've dealt with budgets for organizations that I've worked at and raised money before, but when you're looking at the whole city's budget, it's different. It takes a lot of time, but I do feel like here at the city, we have a good process, and I have been appreciative for the process that we have in place, especially lately. And, this year is a very tight year. Our revenue does not look to be as high as it has been in the past in terms of growth. And so that means we cannot spend as much. We can't add, a lot of new projects or positions. So it's a very different budget year, but I'm glad that, we're going to all come together and make it work so that we don't have to have big cuts.
Yes. And well, moving on with the next subject, how about you talk to me a little bit about this pump station?
Well, it's funny. You never realize how much you're going to end up learning about sewage or other things when you're on council. But the Mint Lane pump station has come before us. That is a pump station over by Dunbar. It has been leaking sewage in its current location. And in order to comply with the consent decree that the EPA put on the city to fix our leaking sewage throughout the city, it really needs to be upgraded. So then Back in 2023, there was a sewability study, and they looked at what different possibilities there were, and they came up with a few different ones. And so really what the kind of the debate has been is which location would be best. Would it be best to keep it where it is and kind of expand it there with some things that could be challenging to keep it where it is? Should it go downstream and expand on someone else's property who is willing to let it be there? It even was brought in, should we do it on airport property, even further downstream? So, all of those were looked at. We received a study that explained all the pros and cons of the different locations, and it just became a very contentious issue, really. Some people argued that if we didn't put it in the same place that it is right now, that we were building infrastructure for possible developers in the future outside the urban service boundary, and that upset a lot of people. Other people said, it wasn't a good use of money to keep it where it is now when it might not be an ideal location. We kind of ended up ruling out the airport location just because of cost. It was going to be a lot of money, and the airport wasn't thrilled about us putting it on their land. So we ended up voting last week to keep it in the same place, with the idea that if it becomes too expensive, too difficult of a project to do, or they don't get the proper permission from Fayette County Public School, that they would come back to us and then we would reevaluate.
Yeah, I thought one of the reasons that you kept it there is because it was the least expensive option, actually.
Yes, that is one of the reasons. It was less expensive. I would say, I think what we were worried about with the concerns in that location is that it could easily escalate the price. So if they find something that's going to really escalate it, they'll come back to council for permission.
I see, and it obviously got a lot of public comment, that decision.
Yes, it became very contentious. We had a long public comment about it. We got a lot of emails about it. People felt, strongly one way or another. I find those decisions really challenging. Sometimes people don't see the whole picture and they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And so sometimes you have information that you want to share with everybody because you want them to help understand the whole picture. So it was not an easy decision, but I think it's the best decision for now.
Yes, and another thing that has a lot of public comment is solar.
Yes, solar always has lots of public comment. I love solar. I think, it's wonderful. We need to look for more creative ways to integrate it and give homeowners the option of doing it. I think that, right now, what council did is we sent the changes that had been made, some updates from a work group to the Planning Commission. That is something, they propose additional requirements such as maintaining continuous agricultural production with annual inspections, a community benefits plan, and things like that. And they are looking at solar on ag land. So I personally voted against it and have consistently voted against it because I don't believe that we should be opening ag land to large solar projects, unless that ag land is on land that cannot be used, like we did with the former with the former landfill, and brown land or land that cannot be used for agriculture. Otherwise, I just don't think we should be opening that door. So, but it did pass council and it did head on to the Planning Commission. So they will be looking at it before they return it to council in the fall.
Well, so what else would you like to talk to us about?
Well, another issue that we looked at was the money for the opioid abatement money. So we have gotten $9 million in a national opioid abatement settlement. And the mayor had a group that looked at recommendations. Then the mayor made her recommendations based on the group's recommendations. We looked at that and we decided to set aside $3 million of that money for a community grants program and $2.2 million for a homelessness task force for the homelessness task force because they are going to be making recommendations. And we wanted to make sure that they had some money to implement those recommendations. So that'll be added to money they already have. And then the remaining $3.8 million, we decided not to allocate for right now. And we're looking at a way to be able to allocate that and based on the recommendations by the mayor. So we'll be looking at that further down. But we did pass the amendments for those allocations. And I think, we feel that's really important to be putting this money back in the community now that we have a problem with opioids now. And so we want to balance that with this idea that we should be saving some for the future for our maybe ongoing grants or ongoing programming. So we're going to look at that and see, what we think we should do for that. But at least now this can get the grant program started.
So unfortunately, we don't have that much time anymore. I'm just going to quickly move on to the next subject, and that is the Lex Park and the fees that they are going to increase.
Yes. So we did look, Lex Park is not, we don't run Lex Park. So sometimes people think that the city runs Lex Park. It's a separate entity, but we do oversee their budget. So they have said that, it's very expensive to maintain their garages, that is something that they've continually had to pour a lot of money into and that they haven't been able to, sustain them well with all the things they've needed to do. And so they asked for a rate increase for the 4 garages that they have. So it would go from $3 for the first 30 minutes and $4 after per hour to a maximum of 19. So that would be up from a rate of $1 for every 18 minutes up to a maximum of 12 per day. So this, quasi-government organization is telling us that they need help to maintain their costs or upkeep for their garages. So we did decide to approve their rates and to send that forward just because those garages are so expensive. So it's a slight increase, but not a large one. And like I said, that's just for their garages.
I think it was. I don't recall if it was last year or the year prior that they also tried to increase the fees.
Yeah. So it was not on the. So they haven't done the garages in consecutive years. They did some things with the on-street parking a few years ago. So I think I'm trying to think if it was. I know 2023 they did some changes,
and they wanted to charge for weekend parking or something.
Right, and now it's still free on Sundays, but they did extend their hours a little bit. So this once again is just for their 4 garages, and that's Helix Garage, Courthouse Garage, 350 West Short, and the Transit Center.
Okay. Well, now just to finalize this interview, remind us about the upcoming primaries.
Yes, so it's really important that you get out and vote. Oftentimes we just think of voting for the general election in November, but on May 19th, we have our primaries, and Depending on which party you're registered for, you will have primaries for Congress and Senate. And you will also have some local primaries. And that's really important because those are nonpartisan races. So you can get out and you can vote, and it doesn't matter what you're registered as. You have a say about who moves forward to the general election. So in any race where there are more than two candidates, for regular races, like let's say there's 3 or 4 or 5, there's going to be a primary. The 2 candidates that get the most votes move on to the general election. Not necessarily the one that wins the primary amount of votes wins the general. The first time I ran against 4 other people. I finished second in the primary, and then I won the general. So you never know. Your vote matters because it matters who moves on to that general election. So we have a mayoral primary, which is something that I hope people will tune into and listen to that. Our at-large race does not have a primary because there's only 6 candidates and there are 3 spots. So that's like 2 per spot. So that's why it does not have a primary. So I suggest that you get on the county clerk's website and that you look up your ballot. If you put in, your information, then your ballot will pop up so you know who's on your ticket and who you need to research.
Yes, and I encourage everybody to do their research and to go out and vote if you're able to.
Yes.
All right. So unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you very much for being with us once more.
Thank you for having me, and I hope to see you again soon.
Yes, you will next month, hopefully. And remember that you can also do some more research about what the council is doing at the Lexington City's webpage, which is lexingtonky.gov.
Yes, you can find information there about any of this. You can also find updates if you want to go to Civic Lex. Civic Lex also has a weekly newsletter that is great, that gives you kind of updates about what we're doing. If you want to contact me, you can email me at jreynolds@lexingtonky.gov. My phone number is 859-280-8248, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Lexington's 11th.
Great. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And don't forget, you're listening to Media Lex Radio, WLXU 93.9 LPFM in Lexington, Kentucky.